Have you ever noticed that strange, almost invisible weight that lifts off your shoulders the moment you finally clear off your desk? Most of us just write it off as the satisfaction of completing a chore. We think of a messy room, a crowded workspace, or a chaotic living room as merely an aesthetic problem, an organizational failure. But what if it is something much deeper? What if that pile of unopened mail, those scattered coffee cups, and that visual chaos are actually physically slowing down your brain?
It is a fascinating question, and modern neuroscience is painting a picture that most people are completely unprepared for. We tend to view our environment as a passive backdrop to our lives, but the truth is, human attention is metabolically expensive. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus, decision-making, working memory, and executive control, has a strictly limited processing bandwidth. When you are sitting in a cluttered room, your brain is not just ignoring the mess, it is actively, continuously processing it.
Wait, so even if I am staring straight at my laptop screen, completely zoned in on a document, my brain is still paying attention to the scattered papers in my peripheral vision?
Exactly. And it is paying an energetic cost for every single one of those objects. The human brain evolved to scan environments continuously. From an evolutionary perspective, environmental scanning was absolutely essential for survival. Your nervous system was designed to constantly evaluate movement, objects, potential threats, available resources, and social cues. If our ancestors missed a subtle visual cue in the brush, they might not survive the day. The catch is that your brain still performs this scanning automatically today. Every visible object in your space is actively competing for neural representation.
That makes so much sense, but it is also a little terrifying. We think we are tuning it out, but our biology is essentially treating a messy pile of laundry like a rustling bush on the savannah. It is looking for a hidden predator in the clutter.
That is a brilliant way to put it. Even when we consciously believe we are ignoring the clutter, the brain continues processing it subconsciously. Visual noise quite literally becomes neurological noise. Think of it like having 50 tabs open on your web browser. You might only be looking at one tab, but the other 49 are still consuming the computer's memory, draining the battery, and slowing down the entire operating system.
Which brings us right to the bottleneck of the whole operation, the prefrontal cortex. If our brain is the computer, the prefrontal cortex is the RAM, right?
Precisely. The prefrontal cortex is the executive command center. It manages your task prioritization, your cognitive control, and your ability to hold information in your working memory. But because it has such limited bandwidth, clutter dramatically increases what we call attentional competition. Your brain is repeatedly, subconsciously allocating tiny fractions of its energy toward completely irrelevant stimuli. Over the course of an hour, a day, or a week, this creates profound cognitive fatigue. Your processing speed actually slows down.
So clutter is literally fragmenting our attention at a biological level. It is not just that I am distracted, it is that my brain's hardware is being hijacked by the environment.
Yes, and it goes even deeper than just visual distraction. Objects themselves create hidden decision fatigue. This is a very important concept in environmental psychology. Every visible object in your space carries context. It carries a potential action, a memory, or an unfinished cognitive association.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Like the classic chair in the bedroom that just accumulates clothes. You look at it and it is not just a chair anymore. It is a monument to procrastination.
Exactly. When you look at that chair, your brain is constantly asking a rapid-fire series of subconscious questions. Should I organize this? Do I need to wash this? Should I put this away now? Or think about it later? Clutter creates thousands of these micro-open loops, and every single one of them is competing for your neural resources. Your nervous system remains partially, continuously engaged with the mess. You never get to fully power down.
It is like walking around with unresolved cognitive tension all day. No wonder we feel so exhausted before we even start working. We are fighting a battle against our own furniture and possessions.
And that battle requires actual, physical fuel. Attention itself is heavily metabolically expensive. The brain only makes up about 2% of our total body weight, but it consumes roughly 20% of our body's energy. Focused cognition requires glucose, oxygen, complex neurotransmitter regulation, and extreme mitochondrial efficiency. Every time your environment forces an attentional switch, even a micro switch you do not consciously register, it increases your brain's energetic demand.
So, by sitting in a cluttered environment, we are essentially burning through our daily supply of cognitive fuel just to maintain a baseline level of focus.
Precisely. Clutter amplifies low-level attentional fragmentation continuously. The result is almost always mental fatigue, slower cognition, and a severely reduced capacity for deep work. You are asking your brain to perform high-level executive functions while simultaneously forcing it to process a chaotic visual landscape. It is like trying to run a marathon while carrying a backpack full of rocks.
And the really alarming part is that we are not just dealing with physical clutter anymore. We are living in an era of unprecedented sensory overload. We have the messy desk, sure, but we also have the crowded digital interfaces, the endless notifications, the merging of physical and digital chaos. Modern humans are existing inside a hurricane of stimuli.
It is a profound modern reality. Our nervous systems evolved in environments with relatively limited, slow-moving stimuli. The natural world has a certain rhythm and predictability. Today, the brain is forced to process glowing screens, vibrating notifications, flashing advertisements, physical clutter, digital multitasking, and an endless stream of information, all simultaneously. The attentional system becomes chronically fragmented. In fact, a significant portion of what we diagnose as modern burnout may actually reflect sensory overexposure.
That is a staggering thought. The idea that burnout isn't just about working too many hours, but about the sheer volume of data our eyes and ears are forced to process. The modern brain rarely experiences true perceptual silence.
And that is why minimalism is stepping out of the realm of interior design and into the realm of neurological recovery. Simplified environments are not just about looking sleek or trendy. They actively reduce attentional competition, lower cognitive load, and heal sensory fragmentation. When you strip away the excess, the nervous system finally has permission to become calm.
So, minimalism is actually a form of metabolic efficiency for the brain. By clearing the space, we are giving our prefrontal cortex its bandwidth back.
Exactly. When the visual noise disappears, focus deepens naturally. Working memory improves because it isn't juggling irrelevant data. The brain can suddenly allocate all that conserved energy toward creativity, complex problem-solving, and sustained cognition. Minimalism, in its truest sense, represents neurological optimization.
I want to touch on the emotional side of this too, because I think anyone who has ever spent a weekend decluttering a house knows that the physical exhaustion of cleaning is usually followed by this massive wave of emotional relief. It feels like you can finally breathe. Does clutter carry an emotional weight at a biological level?
Very much so. Environmental disorder has been shown to elevate stress signaling in the brain. It can trigger spikes in cortisol and contribute to a chronic sense of emotional overwhelm. The nervous system interprets visual chaos as unresolved tension and, on a primal level, as a lack of safety. It signals that the environment is unpredictable and out of control.
So a messy room is literally telling our biology that we are not safe?
In a subtle, chronic way, yes. Meanwhile, highly organized, minimalist environments increase predictability, a sense of control, and perceived safety. The brain relaxes much more easily in coherent spaces because it doesn't have to stay on high alert. Clean spaces regulate our emotional biology just as much as they regulate our cognitive processing.
It makes me wonder about the future of how we design our world. If our physical space dictates our brain's energy consumption and emotional state, then architecture and interior design are basically branches of neuroscience.
They absolutely are, and emerging fields are already investigating this. We are seeing the rise of neuroarchitecture, environmental psychology, attention design, and cognitive ergonomics. The future of human performance science will likely focus heavily on cognitive environment design. We are moving toward a recognition that human performance depends not only on internal biology like sleep, diet, and exercise, but also on the external environments that are continuously shaping our neural processing.
Because the brain is always absorbing its surroundings, it is essentially a sponge for whatever room you put it in.
Precisely. We can no longer afford to think of our workspaces or our homes as just physical containers. They are active participants in our cognitive processes.
It is a massive paradigm shift. We spend so much time trying to hack our productivity with supplements, apps, and time management techniques. But perhaps mental clarity was never only about motivation or discipline. Perhaps the brain simply needed less noise.
Because every object competes for attention. Every distraction, no matter how small, consumes precious energy. And in a world that is fundamentally overstimulated, where our attention is constantly being commodified and harvested, simplicity is no longer just an aesthetic choice. It may become one of the most advanced forms of cognitive protection we have.
Cognitive protection, I love that. It turns the act of clearing your desk into an act of profound self-care and mental preservation. It leaves you wondering, what brilliant thoughts are we missing out on, simply because our brains are too busy processing the clutter around us?
That is the exact question we all need to be asking ourselves the next time we sit down to work.
Something to deeply consider as we look around our own spaces today.